This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. It's 7:30. Hello everybody. Welcome to this live Q&A on Telegram with Paul Johnson, the CEO of Power Metal Resources, hosted by Stockbox. I'm Mark Fairbairn and I'll be hosting the session tonight along with Kenny in the background, the Telegram admin controlling the chat. And we're very pleased to be doing this again for Power Metals. It's great to see so many people here. Thank you all very much for joining. I do hope very much one day that we can actually do this in person in a real life live event. I remember my days as a private investor. I always found those events extremely valuable, and the prospect of Stockbox holding their first live evening would be very exciting indeed. So hopefully we can make that happen and we can all meet in person. Some familiar faces, some new faces, and of course, all the characters we've got to know across social media in these last few years. So, as well as Paul, you will be aware we've also got two special guests with us tonight. They are, of course, from the IPOs that POW are spinning out for their Australian and North American side of the business. Oliver Friesen, the CEO of Golden Metal Resources, and Tristan Potas, the CEO of First Development Resources. So the format for this evening is the same as last time. We'll start with the questions already received so far. There's about 12, I think. Thank you, everyone, for sending them in on Telegram and on Twitter. I'll put them to Paul or Oliver or Tristan, and they will answer them live. And it might take 30 minutes, a little bit longer, but around that time, we'll then open up the chat and unmute everyone for any further questions or points you would like to put to Paul or the other guys. And this can be done by typing your question in the main group, or you can ask it live in the session by tapping the mic icon. Kenny will unmute everyone. Okay, so just one last point to get across. Of course, the company are listed on the London Stock Exchange and are bound by the rules of the London Stock Exchange. But I'm sure Paul, Oliver and Tristan will do their best to answer all of your questions as best they can. So Paul, let's bring you in first. Welcome, Paul. Good to be talking again. Maybe just, do you want to say a quick hello, Paul?
Yes, sure. If you can hear me okay, Mark?
Yes, hear you loud and clear.
Super. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for giving up your evening, or some of your evening, hopefully not too long, to listen to a little bit more about our story. I find it an incredible thing when investors engage with companies and listen to events when share prices are down, the pressure is on, the questions are in the background, and you're wondering if you made the right choice in investing in a company, or if you're thinking about doing so, whether you should bother when there seems to be such a negative backdrop. Well, in our world, almost no investors in the junior resource space will ever make any money. The vast majority of people will hope, will try, will have periods of success, but will walk away empty-pocketed, never to touch AIM again, or never to touch the junior resource space again. It's the environment where when you feel happiest, you're about to lose your money. And when you feel saddest, you're about to make the type of money that you could only possibly dream of in terms of investment returns. Now, I can't convince you with just a few words, and neither can Oliver, neither can Tristan, to invest in Power Metal Resources, but we can perhaps give you some inspiration to do some further research. We can give you some pointers as to the areas of the business where we feel confident and where we're looking forward to the results and excited by what might be ahead of us. And it takes me back to the start of African Battery Metals, which was the previous name for Power Metal Resources, back in December 2018, when I was walking to Greg's for a coffee in the morning, and I noticed an announcement pop up to say that the company had been suspended pending financial clarification. They ran out of money in 2018. And then they had 3 projects in the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and the DRC. And we refinanced the company, changed the management team around, and started the process of rebuilding. And over 19, 20, and 21, we brought in projects around the world, 3 continents, 6 countries, 14 projects, targeting 10 commodities, to the point where we now have, in comparison with what we thought we would have 3 years down the line, a staggering business. with so much reach and potential, dipping into so many areas in the resource market, offering multiple district scale opportunities, offering multiple strategic assets, and offering not just the hit and hope exploration philosophy of so many companies out there, but the chance of commercial success through spin-outs and disposals, the chance of disciplined exploration success. We are not a hit and hope business. We are running multiple programs simultaneously and have been for some time across the world on our exploration properties, and building a commercial business, one that will last for a good period of time and we hope and trust generate dramatic returns for our investors. So with that backdrop, we wanted to open ourselves up to questions, because right now we don't feel a lack of confidence in our business. We don't feel what the market seems to display, which is a business that's weakened over the last year as the share price fell from 3.45 pence mid in January 21 to the current price, flopping around 1.3, 1.4. We've bifurcated from the market. We have built a business that we feel utmost confidence in. And by coming and facing you all, well, maybe online, we think that we're accountable and we can demonstrate to you our belief in the company. So that's me done, Mark.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paul, for that introduction. And talking about facing people live, I'm sure I'll get you up in front of investors face to face, so you can experience that again at some point. But on to the first question then. So it's about Kavango. Do you think that the Kavango joint venture is going to be exercised? Why didn't you go for outright acquisition? And apparently Ben Turney from Kavango has said initial results from Malopo Farms could be issued very soon. Are you aware of any delays?
Okay, so why did we not go for 100% of Malopo? Well, there's lots of parts to our business, working parts, and we adopt a portfolio approach. So on occasions we will go 100%, and on occasions we'll see an advantage in being a partner with somebody else. In the case of Botswana, we've, through the Tati project, which Oliver can talk about a little bit more later on, we're building our team in Botswana. But in order to take on multiple projects, then you do need that depth of resource in country. And if I'm honest, it was too early for us to do that, to take that project on full on, to manage the project, to manage both the technical side, the operational side, the corporate side, and all the rest. Perhaps had it have been down the line in a year's time, we would have done it in a flash. I can tell you from a technical perspective, we would have done that in a flash. We felt, on balance, that by bringing in a partner with a great deal of experience, a full-on operational team in Botswana dedicated to Botswana, that we would give the project and ourselves as a percentage holder in the project the best chance of success. And we're circa 53% at the moment in terms of our project interest, direct and indirect. And should Kavango exercise our option, we'll drop to 40% direct project interest alongside Kavango and Evrima PLC that have a small percentage holding. Do I think they will exercise their option? I cannot speak for them, but I would be surprised if they didn't, if I'm honest, judging by the information that we have. But you have to remember, the exercise of an option is dependent on many factors, one of which is the technical merit of the project itself. I can say that for us to go with a district scale opportunity, a couple of thousand square kilometres of ground, to have the build-up work undertaken, and then to pick the first three drill locations, and to get the results that we got out of hole K16, the second hole drilled, was pretty remarkable. And the evidence suggests that this is the type of project that you would certainly crack on with, because we're looking for that major district scale discovery, and it has all the ingredients of that. So I'm quite optimistic about the results that will come out of the program from Kavango. It is an option work program, so no option fee. Instead, they've done a variety of different work program items, and we will get that information in due course. I tend to avoid being held hostage to fortune on dates and times, but I can tell you they don't have much time left because the option runs out this month.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, we actually had, I think, 3 questions all around the same theme of assays and labs, and I can understand the frustrations around that. I think everyone who invests in junior mining resources can understand the frustrations waiting to get those assay results back from the lab. But effectively, I'll roll the sort of 3 questions into one. Is the assay lab something that we can choose, or Power can choose? What factors do you take into account, if you can choose, when sending assays to the lab? And it's talking about financial reasons, turnaround time, reputation, etc. And is there a reason to send the core samples all the way to Australia when you could, in theory, have got them assayed by credible labs in South Africa? I think the feeling is it's taking far too long to get the results out, and part of that has to be attributed to the delay in shipping samples from Botswana to Australia. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the assays and the choice of labs, really, Paul, and why it's taking so long?
Yeah, sure. In fact, why don't we get Oliver to answer this question?
Sure.
He's
Oliver?
been in.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, you know, I sort of share the frustration that I have with everyone else with the delays that we're seeing here. You know, ultimately, when it comes down to when we're making these decisions, is the fact that we're looking to go and partner with the lab that is essentially the most credible in what they do. So to answer the first question, we have complete autonomy. We choose where the samples go and which lab they go to. The drilling company has no say in that process. So it's completely up to us where they go. You know, as Paul sort of mentioned earlier, as we go into different jurisdictions, it's important that we partner up with various groups and consultants in that country to help us sort of push our exploration narrative in that country. For Botswana in particular, we partnered up with Charles Byron. Charles Byron is probably one of the most well-respected geologists in Botswana. If you mention his name to anyone that works in mining in the country, they know him quite well. He currently is a consultant for B2 Gold, a major mining company out of Vancouver. So he's very well respected. So when we had sort of our planning calls for the drilling at Tati, obviously one of the things that came up was where we're going to send the results, or where we're going to send the drill core samples. And you know, he's been working in Botswana for over 50 years now. And he very quickly and very sort of emphatically said we need to send the drill core to Intertek. So when one of the leading experts in that country says that, you listen. There are obviously lots of other labs in Africa. Speaking to him, he's essentially had quality issues with some of the ones in South Africa. And I can tell you sort of from experience, you know, when you do cut corners, you send to a lab that maybe isn't as well respected, it can end up causing a lot of headache with, first of all, not being able to trust the data. And second of all, having even longer turnaround times when you have to sort of get things reassayed. So we have complete autonomy. We chose to go to Intertek. One thing I will say is that with sort of how busy every jurisdiction is in the world right now, every lab is experiencing delays. And I can assure you that actually when we send the samples to Intertek in Johannesburg for prep, and then they get shipped over to Perth for analysis. And actually the process of having them shipped from Johannesburg to Perth, they actually do it, it takes usually about 2 to 3 days. So that actually doesn't delay the process that much. The issue that we're having right now is the amount of backlog that we're seeing in Australia and in Perth. So the reality is we're frustrated, but this is just part of the business. And ultimately, once we do get these results, we know that they're from Intertek. They're from one of the gold standard labs that you find in the world. So we know that once we do get the results, we can trust them, which is ultimately the most important thing.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. I'll stick with you for the next couple of questions. So there's one that's come in regarding the Uranium Projects, and this guy is hilarious, Evil Hood on Twitter, that little strange little bald man with the big eyebrows, who was always trying to overthrow Tracy Island. He apparently needs uranium to power his Thunderbird. Could you update on the uranium side in the Athabasca Basin, and when he can have an idea of when he can put the fuel in his Thunderbird?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we put out an RNS on the uranium stuff about 3 weeks ago now. So what that did is that touched on sort of the results that we got out of the sort of the comprehensive historic data comp that we completed. And in that particular update, we sort of focused on our Tate Hill project. This is just one of the 7 projects in the portfolio. So in that update, you can see sort of the results that were generated out of the historic data comp that we did. Obviously, there's a lot of information in that release, and the plan is now to put out similar type releases for the remaining 6 properties in the portfolio. What I can say is that by doing this historic data comp, it takes a bit of time, but essentially all the data that we're collecting is free to the company. It's just a matter of us going out and collecting it. So we're building up value on each and every asset as we collect more and more data sets, and more importantly, as we digitize that data. So what we're going to do is in that release, I also highlighted that we have recently hired a sort of a uranium expert. He's someone that did his master's in the Athabasca Basin. He's actually UK national. So he's joined us now, and he's going to help me sort of push our uranium portfolio forward. So he's a really important piece of the puzzle here. Obviously, with how much we have going on across the globe, it's important that we sort of hire experts in each individual field. So now that we have him on board, that's going to help us push this narrative forward even quicker. So in the next couple of weeks and months here, we'll continue to release updates on the historic data comp that we completed. That work is going to also help us as we sort of plan our 2022 exploration across the portfolio. And then on top of that, we're looking at sort of various commercial angles for the portfolio. I can't say too much, but hopefully we'll have an update on that within the next couple of weeks here. So that should give investors an idea as to kind of what our plans are with different parts of the portfolio. But it's, just looking at the Tate Hill results, that's obviously really exciting to see that amount of sort of data compiled and value added. And I can assure you that we've done sort of very similar things for the other 6 properties in the portfolio. So because there's so many properties, we have to sort of slowly put that out to the market. We don't want to sort of overwhelm everyone, but there's a lot sort of going on behind the scenes here, and hopefully we'll have more updates on potential dispositions in the next couple of weeks, and then also on sort of the results of the historic data comp across the portfolio.
Okay, excellent. And again, Oliver, I'll just stick with you on this. This is regarding the Orthia Lithium project. It seems to have gone quite quiet since you acquired the land. Have POW managed to have any sort of conversations with the guys at Sayona Mining regarding the land that you have, considering they are the closest mining company to the project and have been very successful to date with the licensed ground? And another question around lithium was, are there any new potential lithium targets that you could announce to market?
Yeah, so good question. So to answer the first part of that, we have not spoken to Sayona. Right now, they're in sort of the stage of the process where they're mostly sort of finalizing permitting, First Nations agreements, that type of thing. So they haven't really launched into full-scale mining yet. I believe that is actually slated to start, I believe, end of this year, early 2024. So they're at the process now where they're not sort of looking at additional land. That's something that maybe they will open up once they've sort of moved into the more production side of things. So we have not had any formal conversations as of yet. But potentially, as I mentioned, as they sort of progress through the various stages here and into production, that potentially could change. The reality of the Orthia North project, and the reason that we took this on, and this has all been put out into the public domain, is the fact that the lithium-bearing pegmatite that they're going to be mining, it dips towards the north at I believe it sort of varies between 30 and 45 degree dip. So what that means is, because our claim boundary is so close, it's sort of reasonable to postulate that potentially that lithium-bearing pegmatite actually would extend onto our ground. So the main model there is that, for us to potentially really unlock some value here, it would require us to drill, at least one sort of deep hole to test for the extension of that lithium-bearing pegmatite. So we're not at the stage where we're comfortable doing that quite yet. We want to sort of let Sayona sort of progress with their mining plans. It's something that we do consider. In general, drilling costs are actually quite low in Quebec. Which obviously makes drilling a deep hole potentially a lot more easy to sort of rationalize. But that's sort of the main model there, is we're looking for something that's deep. We're looking for the extension of what they're going to be mining at surface. And obviously, as they continue to mine, they're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And you can reasonably consider that, down the road, they're going to be looking for more or additional ore feed. So that's sort of our main model that we have there. And what we will potentially announce is our sort of next stage of exploration. We're looking at potentially doing more geochem or more geophysics. This can help us potentially uncover any sort of additional sort of near surface pegmatites that might exist. In terms of other lithium targets that I can sort of speak about right now, I can assure you that we are looking at every lithium opportunity that comes to us. We are incredibly bullish on lithium in the short, medium, and long term. It's something that we love to have in our portfolio. We're really happy with the exposure that we have. But obviously, we're always looking to potentially increase that exposure. So in terms of other lithium sort of, noteworthy things, there are some pegmatites that have been found on the Haneti project. I don't want to speak about those too much yet, as it's very early stages, but that's something that potentially we could look at in more depth. And then, we're looking at additional lithium opportunities right now. So if any of those formalize, we'd be happy to release those to the market, but that's all I can sort of touch on right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be keeping an eye out to follow that news flow. So, Paul, if I can come back to you then, straightforward question. How is drilling going over in Victoria, Australia?
Yeah, well, we've been putting up some of the images and the videos through Twitter, and they're going on our website, showing that program in Victoria and showing the other programs that are active at the moment. Yeah, it's going well, and we now on to the second location. We started at O'Loughlin's, and they've moved on to Pitfield. So there's a lot of intense activity right now. We obviously are looking forward to seeing what we find. It's the land of dreams, the Victoria Goldfields. It's delivered so much in terms of Australian gold production over the years. It's experienced, because of the Fosterville mine, a resurgence of late and huge amounts of activity in the area. And I know the Victoria Goldfields focused businesses, particularly on the TSX and CSE, have suffered a depreciation in market value, which may have taken the apparent fervour away from Victoria, but I'm sure that will return very quickly on the back of results and on the back of general market uplift. But no, it's going great, and we are looking forward to coming back to market and telling people precisely what we found. Okay,
thank you. So the next question, it's perhaps not exactly a question, but I think it sort of does sum up a few feelings amongst shareholders. And it says, probably all our multiple work streams are proceeding according on schedule and budget, but that's not exciting for the market, although it is excellent news for the company. So, I mean, I guess the thing is, and you alluded to it at the start maybe, but how do you make it exciting? Is it really about assay results, and how does the market get excited about what's going on with Power Metals?
Yeah, it probably gets a lot more exciting internally when they're not going on schedule and they're not going on budget. In fairness, it's a tricky one. Excuse me, because if you look at our business, we have so many things going on. It's a bit tricky to get the message out there and to embed the message. It's a problem of now, not a problem of tomorrow, because tomorrow our business model will be better articulated by IPOs, by exploration work findings, and people will, gain more confidence in what we're doing. But right now, most companies out there, if they have one project active at the moment, it's a surprise. And what they get to do as a single project focused business is they get to talk about that project. They get to build the excitement around that project. And they get to really go out there, promote it, layer on the marketing. They release an RNS, and they have weeks and weeks to promote what they've found. And then they have weeks and weeks to talk about what they might find when they next do some work in 4 months' time. We get about 24 hours sometimes between news releases, maybe 2 or 3 days if we're lucky. So we never really get that traction on any one item of news, which is unfortunate, but is the nature of the type of diverse, complex business that we've built, where, we're looking for a market cap, not in the tens of millions, in the hundreds of millions, maybe more. And that requires us to build this complex business, to have this intense activity, to really go for it like the clappers, to use a northern phrase. So yes, we are proceeding, largely speaking, on schedule, but not always. We are generally on budget, but not always. We have got a strong, robust financial position, which we maintain throughout. We've protected our shareholders through the process with our financings that we've undertaken along the way. The most recent being in November, which was wholeheartedly at a disappointing price level, I can assure you. But it was the right thing to do at that time. But we did it at the market, and the warrants in that case 3.5 pence, twice the 1.75 pence raise price. And what we do have is a steam train approach to our business life. We are undertaking multiple activities simultaneously. There are multiple work streams. It is a challenge to manage on occasions, but we now have a growing team. And as you've heard already with Oliver, and you'll hear later with Tristan, and many others within the team, we've got a fabulous group that are all working resolutely to achieve the same outcome, which is for a considerable business with multiple discoveries, district scale discoveries where we can, with major commercial events dramatically adding to our balance sheet and increasing the value of the company. And really the type of business that the London market hasn't seen before in the junior resource space. So I have to apologize and say that we do have a lot going on. It often crosses, the news items cross over one another. And I am doing my best to develop distinctive individual marketing for each of our projects. But in one sense, it's a bit like buy one project at the current market cap and get 14 free.
Okay, thank you. So much more simpler question, if you know your numbers, Paul. Do you know how many meters of drilling are planned in totality on exploration programs?
Well, that's a bit difficult to give an answer when there's no time period specified. However, I am an accountant, so it is a numbers game. We did 1,092 meters of RC drilling at Tarty, if I recall correctly. We are obviously awaiting results. We are planning to do circa 1,000 meters at Hanetti, which is 3 holes, circa 250, 250, 500. And I think the Australian program is circa 2,000 meters. Both Hanetti and Australia are diamond drilling. So at the moment, we're kind of running programs with 4,000 meters. Obviously, in the early stages of projects, you're trying to understand the geology. You're not spending vast amounts on very expensive drill programs. You're looking for what the geological signs that are down there that obviously you can't get to any degree of accuracy from above the surface or at the surface. You use that information, you match up with what you already know, and it refines your exploration program going forward. And maybe, just maybe, and I've had this before myself with a discovery in Botswana with Metal Tiger at T3, you hit something that changes the company, transforms the business. And you can hit that something in the first few holes of anything, if you're lucky. And we are, really looking forward to what we're going to find from these 3 active programs at the moment, and from the other drill programs that we're slated to happen quite soon. But we don't know until we get assay results back. I suppose to a certain extent you can get some indicators from the samples as they come out, particularly with the diamond drilling. But definitively, you're looking for the assay results. We may well end up drilling a vast amount of meterage in 2022, and I kind of suspect we will do across our portfolio. But of course, one of the primary factors in all of this is capital or the cost of drilling versus your available budget. So you have to keep your working capital under control, and we're very careful with that. Some of our plans will be helped by the IPOs, which will take project packages, put them into their own vehicles with their own financing, which will enable those projects to be accelerated. So the drilling that's planned in the Gold and Metal Resources package can happen to a greater degree and potentially far faster than if it was all held within the Power Metal Resources portfolio rather than spun out. And the same is very much true of First Development Resources, where we're looking to drill the deep targets in the Patterson, going after the magnetic bullseyes that were such a feature of the Greatland Gold Havieron discovery. Again, by having that spun out in its own vehicle with its own finance, you can accelerate the drill program, and you can probably do more drilling than you could if these projects were held within a single vehicle, Power Metal Resources. So the answer is I don't know, Mark, but we push the envelope and we will do as much drilling as we can. We have a great portfolio with so many drill targets. We certainly have a lot to go at.
Okay, excellent. So on to the next question then. I'll put it to you, see how you can answer it. Is it possible to get an idea of Power's exposure to the various metals, i.e. copper, nickel, cobalt, etc., held within the portfolio in terms of the overall value impact, i.e. what is the sum of the parts for each metal as a percentage in total? Do you have an idea?
Well, that's an interesting one. We wanted to have broad exposure. We made that call literally from the start, really. Of the business back in 19. If you get pigeonholed into a particular jurisdiction, or you get pigeonholed into a particular commodity, you can face difficulties more with commodity than jurisdiction, actually. So if a commodity goes out of favor for a period, then it can be very difficult to raise finance to develop the business and to drive it forward. So by having a broad spectrum approach, then you expose yourself to some degree of involvement in most of the key commodities, and we have done that. We've got gold exposure, silver exposure in the base metals. We've got nickel, copper. We've got some interesting strategic metals in the mixed energy metals. Uranium, of course, has been a recent addition to the portfolio in both Canada and Australia. And that approach, I think, will continue. What it does do with a spin-out model in part is it provides us with multiple packages that can be spun out into their own vehicles. So in Gold and Metals case, we focused on Nevada. In First Development Resources case, we focused on Australia. And we will, I imagine, and he has to be careful what he says here, uranium offers so many opportunities. There's such a dearth of uranium vehicles in London that having a decent uranium portfolio gives you optionality with regard to potential new vehicle creation in that particular commodity, which seems to be experiencing a bit of a resurgence. And if I recall correctly, after 14 years, 15 years down the line, 2006-07 was an explosive period for those companies with uranium in their portfolio. We, of course, are, as you can tell from Oliver's words before, are focusing some material energy and effort on uranium and building that side to our business. So I imagine that will become increasingly prevalent as the weeks and months go by. As to what the each element or each metal is worth, or projects with those metals are worth as a percentage of the portfolio, it's a bit difficult to say at the minute. Of course, we know one thing, that as soon as the market recognizes we have a major commercial discovery, then whatever project that is will have a significant amount of influence on the value of the business going forward, and potentially what we do as a business. So what kind of discount to assets is Power currently on? Well, we're not, to be honest, the discount to assets in the terms of the traditional accounting valuations. I would suggest we're at a dramatic discount to our peers with our market valuation, but at the moment we will never be a net asset play. We'll never be an investing company that just tries to build its balance sheet and just build its investment value. We are always going after major discoveries in our portfolio.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Paul. That concludes the questions for you. I do have a couple for Tristan. So before I put those questions to you, Tristan, this is the first time that we're speaking. I can see you've unmuted yourself. Would you like to just, for a minute, just perhaps say hello and introduce yourself to some of the Power shareholders?
Sure. Hi, Mark, and hello everyone who's listening. It's great to have the opportunity to say hello and give you a bit of about my background. So I'm from the UK originally, from Whitby in North Yorkshire. I started my career working at Bulby Potash Mine there before moving out to Western Australia to go and work in the goldfields. I did my time out in Kalgoorlie as a mine geo, and worked my way up the operational ranks in the industry. Moving to Perth, doing fly in, fly out to the northern goldfields. Before moving out to Latin America to go and work in copper gold porphyry systems up in the northern Andes of Peru, and then it was a bit of a chance encounter really, which brought me back to the UK in 2011, and an opportunity to be involved in the Sirius Minerals project. I joined that project when there was literally a handful of us. And between us, we were going to build the biggest mine of its type anywhere in the world, to mine a mineral which nobody considered economic, to sell a product into one of the most conservative markets on the planet, and to build this mine in a national park, and to do it with very little in the way of initial finance. And for those people who followed the Sirius story, you'll be well aware of the successes of the business and its development, but also how Sirius ended up in the acquisition by Anglo American. So I was involved in that project from its inception, pretty much through to the acquisition. And then it was for me, after Anglo American acquired that project, I didn't want to work for Anglo. I was there with them for a couple of years, and they're a great company. But I knew that for me, my interest is in the junior side of the business. It's the juniors who go out and scratch in the dirt looking for value. It's the juniors where the excitement is. It's the juniors actually who make the discovery. So for me to be able to come across and join Power, and with a focus on the Australian projects, notably FDR, it's full circle in some respects, although it's a bit of a figure of eight. But yeah, I'm hugely excited about the prospects ahead.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. So I have a couple of questions for you, Tristan, at the moment. The first one is, how are you feeling about drilling those bullseye targets in Australia? It should be very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. How am I feeling? Actually, to be honest, very excited, actually. I had the luxury of being able to inherit a project after a huge amount of work had been done by people like Oliver and the vendors who are the people we acquired the projects from. And, there's no doubt that the Walal project has captured people's attention for obvious reasons, right? We've got these three intriguing magnetic bullseye anomalies, which, based on their geophysical signature, do have striking resemblances to other significant discoveries in the region, obviously notably Greatland Gold's Javieron. And as I mentioned in the previous discussion, obviously we hope that those similarities do translate into mineralogical similarities. But the reality is we've now reached a point where we've done as much work as we can on the surface in terms of analysing all that historical data, and looking at all available data sets, to a point where we now just have got to stick some holes into these things and see what we've got. And the thought of getting this thing going and cracking on it is very exciting. So yeah, it's I hope that it does generate a level of interest. From a business or company perspective, we're trying to get everything in place to allow that transition from desktop to intrusive investigation to happen as efficiently as possible. Those who follow FDR and Power will have seen that we successfully completed a reconnaissance mission to site earlier in the year. And what was really pleasing about that reconnaissance was that the trip demonstrated that the borehole locations are very well connected to the Great Northern Highway by existing well-established access. And if anyone is familiar with drilling campaigns, the simple fact of being able to get a rig to site is a massive hurdle, which in some jurisdictions and geographical locations is a big hurdle to get across. And obviously we've been able to demonstrate that we can get there fairly efficiently once we get the heritage survey complete, which will be happening over the next few weeks.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that. You did mention, of course, Greatland Gold and Javieron, and that brings me on to the other question that I have for you, which is that Sean Day from Greatland Gold discussed that they are using both magnetic and gravitational anomalies to focus their exploration programs on their 100% owned licenses, with the hope of finding similar deposits to Javieron. So with the knowledge that you have of the Walal bullseye anomalies, how similar are they to Javieron, and what lessons can you take from that discovery?
So, yeah, so first of all, I really want to stress the fact that the similarities are based on a geophysical signature, okay? And, that gives us gives us sufficient evidence to say that, look, this warrants further investigation. And I really want to make that clear at this stage, is that it is a geophysical signature. And until we get a borehole down there, we're not going to know whether there are these mineralogical similarities also. But just, in terms of the geophysical signature, anyone who's seen our information presentation will see that, we've put a comparison between Walal and Javier on it. You can see that, in terms of the amplitude of these anomalies, that they are very similar. I think the biggest lesson we can take from the success at Javier, for me personally, is optimism. And I'm sorry if that sounds a bit like a woolly answer. I've got other points to make, but in exploration, optimism, as a geologist, optimism it forms a massive part of our mindset. We're looking for things which you can't necessarily identify from surface. If you don't believe that there's a chance of finding something, you're not going to go that extra mile to actually realize that if the potential exists. So it's always nice to see when people do make discoveries, because it gives the market that shot in the arm, which sometimes it needs. But I think, ultimately, like any exploration program, it takes that disciplined, multi-layered approach to exploration by being methodical in how we go about, doing the necessary work to home in our sites onto the best place to deploy capital to hopefully increase our chances of making a discovery. Other things that we can obviously do, we can go to consultants who've got experience in the Patterson region, and in some instances, people who've got intimate knowledge of some of those other projects up there in northern Western Australia. We can speak to drilling contractors who also have drilled extensively within the region. We can look. It's always good to look to neighbours, albeit it's a bit loose because considering the distance. Look at what they did successfully and apply that to our thought process. Exploration's a very tricky game, right? It's trying to answer the unanswered questions, to quote one of my colleagues. And we'll look to any success to analyze what they did well and try to apply it to what we do. Sorry.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tristan. So that's the only couple of questions I had for you. If any do come in now that we are opening the floor to people in the group to ask questions, then I'll bring you back in. But I think the first one that I have coming is probably for Oliver. It's regarding Pilot Mountain, I believe. So it's great to have a JORC-defined resource in Pilot Hill, and it really makes GMR an exciting project. Very much looking forward to seeing how the team progress there. Which project or location are you most optimistic of bearing the next defined resource under the POW umbrella?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not the first time someone has asked me that question. It's tough to answer. The reality is, with the portfolio that we have, and sort of as Paul has sort of alluded to here, we have multiple shots at discoveries here. And I think that's what makes our company unique compared to other companies that are maybe drilling one or two assets at most in a year. In terms of picking my favorite, I'll name a few. That's not to say that I don't like the rest. It's just a few that kind of sort of stand out for various reasons. Golconda Summit, Carlin type gold. I used to work for Barrick Gold, literally up the road from Golconda Summit. We found 15 million ounces of gold there in essentially the same package of rocks that we're seeing at Golconda Summit. Obviously, that one's exciting. It's never had deep drilling on it into the lower plate rocks. That's one that I'm really excited about going and drilling. Nickel is something that I am incredibly bullish on. The supply and demand fundamentals right now are incredibly bullish for nickel in the short, medium, and long term. Malapo Farms is one that has always sort of stood out to me. The fact that it sort of has more or less sat idle. Obviously, a bit of work has been done, and those sort of limited drill programs generated some really exciting results. So to say that I'm excited about hopefully getting Kavango in here to go and really tackle this thing is an understatement. I think there's incredible potential there. Essentially, the way that those systems work is when you're dealing with magmatic sulfides, you don't get just sort of small little whiffs here and there like sometimes you can get in gold systems. So when you find magmatic sulfides, nickel sulfides, at depth, that's generally going to point to the fact that there's something bigger there. So I'm really looking forward to a much more robust drilling program there. The Kalahari Copper Belt stuff is super interesting. Massive discoveries happening there. It's in general a relatively unexplored or underexplored jurisdiction. Lots of new discoveries happening there. So looking forward to kind of getting some drilling going on there. But those are just three that stick out for now. I mean, I could talk your ear off about any of these assets at any point and get you excited about them. But those are just three that maybe stand out for kind of various different reasons.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Oliver. So, Paul, I'll ask this next question to you. It's again regarding Pilot Mountain, but the question is it's surprising that Pilot Mountain was shunted to GMR, not held as core value at the mothership. When GMR lists, what percentage of Pilot Mountain will POW retain?
Okay, so it follows the same model as before. Our portfolio in the POW Central business is dramatic, and there are so many projects that have considerable potential value and actual value. In some of the cases, Pilot Mountain is a project that I've followed for a long period of time, and on the board of Thor Mining, Pilot Mountain was the main reason, I think, in my view, why the share price went from 0.4 pence a share up to 4.5 between 2016 and 18. It's always needed a proper commitment. It's always needed to be done thoroughly as an exploration opportunity and a development opportunity. The size and scale from a resource perspective is dramatic. Most companies in our space, and certainly most companies with a market cap of 20 million quid, are desperately hoping to find something of significance. Well, if you want a discovery, you already have one. It's Pilot Mountain. It's been discovered. It's been produced from. You go on site there, as I have been, and you've got the evidence of the processing site, and you can see that from all of the rock that's been taken out. It has dramatic upside in terms of its resource potential. It has copper potential that hasn't been thoroughly, explored and developed. And it's a project at a time when in the United States, tungsten is on the critical minerals list. There is no primary production, so, mined tungsten of any great substance over there. The secondary kind of market, the recycling market, there isn't that much there. And there is a real burgeoning demand for this important strategic metal going forward. Its commodity price is holding strong in the market. It's a valuable, high-value commodity. And we have secured through the Power Metal Group and ultimately through spin-out Golden Metal, this major project under our control. And it will get a budget through Golden Metal Resources as part of that spin-out vehicle, a significant budget, a budget bigger than it's had in the last few years combined. And it will have proper exploration in different ways, and it will have drilling, and it will be pushed forward considerably. And we hope we can demonstrate the true value of that opportunity in a way that hasn't been possible to demonstrate before. So in terms of keeping it within the business, yes, we could have done. As one of 14, 15 projects, it might not have attracted the capital it really deserves to push it forward. It certainly wouldn't have attracted the attention it will get in Golden Metal Resources as part of that spin-out vehicle. And we are just genuinely looking forward to really pushing that on. We think it is a jewel, to be honest. We think it has tremendous potential. And just touching back on what Oliver said there, Pilot Mountain is great. I love that project. But Golconda Summit is not even being looked at the moment by people when they're talking about the business, Golden Metal, and it needs to be looked at. We're going to arrange some sessions so that Oliver can take people through both Pilot Mountain and Golconda Summit, have a look at the exploration opportunity and the potential of both of those projects. And we shouldn't forget Golconda. I think that one is hiding a little bit in the background, and it should be front and center. Major gold discoveries, the like of As we've seen with Greatland Gold and Javier, if you actually are fortunate enough, and it requires some good fortune to find major discoveries, but if you find a major gold discovery of that region's type, then it's more than company transformational. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Okay. Now, are you able to state maybe to the nearest 5 or 10% what holding Power are ideally? Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, I knew I'd forgotten something.
No, it's all right. That was actually a second question, but
wasn't it?
Yeah. Go on.
It's difficult. It's difficult because it depends on what happens between now and the IPO, and it depends on what financing is undertaken for that vehicle at the IPO. But if one said we will be in the 40 to 50% range, something like that, on listing, then that would give you probably a reasonable estimate indication.
Okay.
We are, we're going to be significant holders. We're going to be, in today's terms anyway, long-term holders, where we think we want to see this business flourish and develop at Power Metal and have a strategic position. If you look at these spin-out vehicles and you look at the valuation that good quality companies with good exploration programs, good corporate methodologies, good corporate ethos can actually do, the valuations can be incredible. And if we hold, say, 45% of a vehicle that's worth £100 million, let's be optimistic and say it's a buoyant market going forward, then that's 45 million of value on the company's balance sheet. And that's, more than twice our current market cap. So from just one spin-out proposition, if it has a good run on the markets, so we will for all of these spin-out vehicles will hold a material percentage, but we are there to watch these things flourish in the market after listing.
Okay, I'll just follow on from that question then with one that was recently posted and just come back to some of the other ones because we're on that theme. Why are you convinced that the IPO route will create value for Power shareholders? A similar tactic with Kibo, Katoro, Mast had failed, or is that more to do with how those companies have run? So why are you so convinced it's the right route to take?
Well, I promise you one thing, Mark. If it wasn't the right route to take for the business or for any individual IPO, if we changed our mind on anything, we would change our mind and we'd explain why. We do believe it's the right route at the moment for the IPOs in process, and we believe it's the right route for the business overall. I've been involved actively in junior resources since my first appointment as a NED of ECR Minerals in May 2012. I have to remember that because it was the month after my son Henry was born, and it's been an incredible journey, and I've restructured and refinanced probably around 25 businesses, mostly in the UK. Many of the companies that I talked about on Twitter and on Telegram are companies that I was involved in the restructuring and refinancing of. And some of those companies have done a great job. Many of them haven't. And I've seen many management teams pay themselves vast amounts of money and do extremely well off the back of my restructuring and refinancing work. And I've come to the conclusion that if you want to do a job properly, you do it yourself. And my question for myself when I started Power Metal, or restructured, refinance Power Metal, is could we get the projects in of substance and of merit? And thank the Lord, the market's been awful, because over the 3 years, we've been able to secure a strategic portfolio, the like of which we'd never have got in a buoyant market, or certainly not have got with our financing capacity over the period. Could I get the money in to enable this to happen? And yes, I've been able to do that, fortunately, to do these acquisitions and to put the money into sensibly costed programs in the business to take projects forward. And then most importantly, could I get the team? And we've got a team of 9 at the moment, about to be 10 within our business. We have people who are at the leading edge of what they do, whether it be marketing, communications, geology, or any area that you look at. We are engaged using and partnering up with the best people in the field. In our operations, we're partnering up with some fantastic consultants and working partners to get stuff done. So from all different angles, we've been able to build the business to where we are today. And there is real potential. I know it doesn't feel like it at the moment, but when this sector kicks, it kicks like a beast. And if it kicks tomorrow, and then in a month's time, everyone will have forgotten about the hardship of 2021, the difficulty in the pullback in share price. You know, if power's trading at 7 pence a share, mid-price, then you won't be too concerned about it falling to 1.3, 1.4. You probably won't even think it, that will ever happen again. And you'll be very buoyant for the future, as I will be, to be quite frank. I'm very buoyed up and happy with that situation. And there are valuations coming on junior resource companies to a level that I suspect most in the market today would not project at this point in time. So by having a diversified portfolio of interest in a number of vehicles that are self-financed with their own strategy, their own management team, their own focus, able to do dramatically more work than we could do in power metal if all those projects were in the same place, into a market where I believe the valuations of these companies will be dramatically higher than we could all predict today, will give us an incredible balance sheet and will mean that we can fund and finance our internal operations and our exploration programs and do more to a level that most of our peers in the junior resource space simply can't manage, even in a buoyant market. But I go back, Mark, to what I said before, that if on any individual IPO, we get together as a team and we go, you know what, this will be better in-house. Or if as a policy for our business, we thought, well, the market dynamics are now X and they were Y, so we need to change, we would change. And I would come back to the market and explain why we had changed, what our approach was and why we'd done it. So, anyone wants to write to us and say, look, we think this is wrong, what you're doing on a project or the business as a whole, you let us know, because we read everything. We're interested in everyone's opinions. And whether you're a nice commentator or a nasty, because we do get both, especially at times like this in the market, it's interesting to see what people are saying about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think the IPO situation is interesting. A lot of people. There are some of the points on that. One of them was, will the most promising projects be retained within POW, or will they be IPO'd? And another question was, someone said the USP for POW for them is getting exposure across multiple projects, and perhaps the complexity of the various IPO structures will make the valuation at POW level more opaque to the market. So again, obviously you feel it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, like you say, you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it's just based on all my years of work that rather than, I used to do a lot of private work through a family company, and that's all stopped now. I'm just focused on POW. And I've done all sorts of different scenarios. Back in 2016, when I refinanced greater than gold at 0.1 pence a share, then it was a great transaction. It was a vehicle that had incredible potential in Australia, but wasn't really developing in the way it should. And we were able to put that money in, change the management around, change the direction of the ship. And then Javier was just coming in as we were leaving after the restructuring and refinance, and the process was sorted, and then became a whacking success. But it was a 2 or 3 step process before Javier. And people said we were mad. In fact, one of my closest business friends at the time said to me that you must be nuts. And I said to him, one day I shall make money on greater than gold. And it proved right. And the only problem was I got out a bit too soon for most of my position, but that's another story. And we will make money on multiple of our projects in our business, and I'm sure the investors will too. In fact, I think we'll make a lot of money. Back when I was running Metal Tiger in 2016 as CEO, we had 3 projects. I remember doing a presentation saying, if one of our 3 projects comes off, it will be significant for our shareholders. If 2 come off, it will be fabulous. And if 3 come off, it will be stratospheric or something. Now we've got 14. And better than that, we've got a team of people who are exceptional, who work very hard, who are constantly snapping at my heels, I'm the slow one in the business, and maybe because I've got responsibility for so many different areas, but we've got people that are pushing our business forward at pace, doing dramatic work, rooting out the opportunity. That we are almost a 24/7 business because we deal with obviously Western Canada across to Central Australia, and we're on the go all the time. So it's not just 14 projects, it's 14 projects with a team behind it that's amazing. And if we cannot make this business into a dramatic success on the market, there is something wrong.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Paul. I just have a couple of questions, I think, left so far. The first one is just for clarification. Will the drilling at Pilot Mountain in GMR and Patterson in FDR commence with the pre-IPO money, or will we be waiting for the IPO completion prior to?
Yeah. So basically, it will be IPO, post-IPO.
Okay.
We're having competent person reports done on the properties. We are for both those IPOs, we are using the best at every level in terms of advisors, lawyers, accountants, competent persons, nominated advisors, general corporate advisors, registrars, the whole lot. There is a process to go through. We are intent on coming out on listing with major exploration programs across both businesses, not hanging around, not building up over, many months, as you so often see with IPOs, where there's no passion about businesses. It's like they heave a big sigh of relief after the IPO and go off on holiday for a couple of weeks or a month. No, we are doing the work. Our exploration work now is on planning and preparation. It's on seeking approvals to do the work that we plan post-IPO. It's on securing the contractors, the advisors that we need in country, because at the moment in certain parts of the world, particularly where we're focused, which are the hot centers, Nevada and Australia, we need to secure those contractors up front wherever we possibly can. And having a plan in place to dramatically crack on with exploration as soon as we list. So it's not quite a holding game in the sense that we're not going to do anything. We are doing lots of things. We're getting ready for the listing so that we come out firing.
Okay, excellent. And this is, I think, the last question, at least so far, Paul. It's possibly been asked before, but are you any closer to identifying a chair?
Oh, that is a good question. I can't answer that, can I? Okay, I might have said this before in a different interview. I'm sorry if it sounds like the same answer.
I think so. Yeah.
We're speaking to a lot of people at the moment, because we're obviously recruiting, if that's the right phrase. We're building teams for the IPO vehicles. And for the planned IPOs or planned corporate events and so on. So yeah, we're very focused on getting the right board together for Power. We're going to a different level in terms of our activities, in terms of the scale of our business. The market will catch up, and when it does, we want to have the right representation at top level to give the investors confidence. Also, the larger investors out there that are increasingly showing interest in companies like ours, this kind of market cap, the opportunities that we have across the portfolio, that it's the kind of thing that the larger organizations, the family offices, the institutional investors need to get exposure to. They know that, just like the majors know that they haven't built a pipeline and they need the juniors for pipeline for the next resource deposits to develop and in many cases to discover. You're seeing the same pattern emerging in the institutional investor base, and we have some interesting discussions. We've had chats with people, not continuously in the last year or so, but increasingly in recent times. We're on the phone with different organizations, and I'm a bit of a stickler. I don't like to get the wrong people involved with our business. So if someone wants to come along and take a strategic position in a project or a business, then they have to be right for the business, not right for me, looking to preserve and protect my position. I'm right for the business, because we have a particular way that we're developing, and we want to build our company very, very significantly over the coming years. So board is important, vitally important. The board, as it's currently constituted, has been quite calm, and we're looking at various we have looked at various board structures and the type of people that we need on the board. It won't just be one recruit, by the way, for the board. It will be more than one. We need, I would say, probably to move towards a board of 5, maybe 6 as the business grows.
Okay. Well, as you say, you're actively recruiting, so anyone who fancies a job, maybe get in touch with Paul there. Okay, there is one question that's just coming. Again, it is back on IPOs. I know we've covered it a lot, but how do you decide if a project will be IPO'd? Is there a decision-making process? Can you give any clues?
Yeah, the IPO process is quite an arduous and tortuous affair, and it's very detailed. It takes you through a level of due diligence and detailed review that just day-to-day business, already listed businesses don't get, to be honest. And that's right, because you're creating a whole new vehicle in a listed public market. You need to have a very strong asset base to take a project package into an IPO. You need strong security of tenure. You need to have a proper licensing environment. You need to have a proper corporate environment, so that the interests that you have are well defined, are secure, and can pass the level of due diligence needed to justify a listing on a public market. In certain jurisdictions, that's more difficult to do than others. And with certain types of projects and certain historic or current ownerships, it's a little bit more difficult to do than others. In terms of the packages that you think will work, aside from the legal and due diligence and stuff I've just been through, it's about the type of project that deserves its own focus and its own independent listing. Just as I said before, with Pilot Mountain, a project that's been crying out for a decent sized budget over the years, and there are lots of people focused on it and looking at it as a major project in an independent business. And it's a judgment call, really, because it's always difficult. I actually agree with people when they say, oh, why don't you keep it within the business? There's so many parts of our business ideally, that will be going down the IPO route that I think I'd love to keep within the company. But if I'm honest, if we were planning to keep everything within the company, we would never have built the project portfolio out so big. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have happened in the same way. We've got the project portfolio of this size because we can see value crystallization opportunities. And interestingly, it's not just IPO. If you take the First Class Metals example, where we had the Hemlo-Schreiber package that we pieced together in early 21, and very suddenly, to a certain extent, not entirely suddenly, but we had to act very quickly when the opportunity came up to vend into First Class Metals, and we got £1 million worth of First Class Metals stock at the then valuation. And that was a situation that I think will be replicated across our business, where third parties will be looking for new opportunities and will partner up, whether it's majors on joint ventures or exclusivity arrangements or earnings or outright acquisitions that I think are probably heading the junior sector's way soon. A lot of M&A work, or whether it's the more articulated and planned IPO route. We will see lots of crystallization opportunities, and we are holding a whole variety of different interests that will attract considerable engagement from third parties as the sector gains in strength. We have so many cards in our business. If you look at our business, we've got 14 or 15 aces in our pack at the moment. So we're playing a game in I suppose, a project aggregation over the years. the last 3 years, and we're getting to the point where crystallization beckons. So I'm quite excited to see how it all plays out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We have talked extensively about IPOs, and of course, they are underway and happening soon. Thank you very much, Oliver and Tristan, for your time coming on today to talk to us about your side of the businesses. And I'm sure we'll be following those stories very closely as the IPOs happen. So we are definitely up on over an hour now, really, an hour certainly of Paul talking. Kenny, we can open up the chat perhaps and see if there's any final questions. There were a lot asked there. We've covered an awful lot. So, chaps, if there's anything else you'd like to ask, either just type away or Kenny, or we're saying wave hands, Kenny. If you can wave hands, I don't know. There's a magic button somewhere you can wave hands, or we can maybe look to just unmute everybody and you're able to shout up for any final questions. But if not, then I think we've had a pretty productive evening. People saying thank you. Some feedback for you, Paul and Oliver and Tristan. Thank you very much.
Okay, if anyone wants to send us any questions or queries through, please do. info@powermetalresources.com. At the bottom of the RNS, every RNS or the contact section, you'll see my personal mobile number. Just send me a text message if you want to get in touch. Ask the crazy questions that no one wants to ask. Absolutely love them, because you get a real insight as to where the business is going. If our sector's about to turn and go very positive, and if our share price is about to turn and go very positive, you'll feel a bit sick at the moment, I think. Over my too many years of experience, that literally the times when I was about to see a major uplift in the valuation of my portfolio, my confidence was knackered, my spirit on the floor. I was thinking of giving up, thinking of selling my shares, moving into some dodgy energy company, just to see if I could ping it back on a big bounce. Well, we've seen recently with a few stocks on the market that if you get involved in the highly exciting speculative plays, they can go horribly wrong. So, if you've got any kind of questions, please get in touch. It's not just myself. I waffle on too much. So I'm very enthusiastic about the business. But the guys are available too, across the business, if you want to speak about specific things. I mean, Tristan's from the north of England, so he loves talking. And you're welcome to come to the office, and you're welcome to meet with members of the team. We are based out of Farnborough. We can meet almost anywhere. We can certainly meet in London. And we are going to hopefully travel around in due course so that we can reach out to people in different regions. But it's really important. I know there's been a lot of unhappiness about constant sells that have been hitting the market in recent months. Now, of course, I know a bit more about that than the general market, because I, as a business, you may not be aware of this, but companies can actually undertake what they call Section 793 reports. So you can pull data on your share capital and where it's held. Now, if you just go to the registrar, they'll give you a very high-level report, which will just show you the number of shares held by Halifax and so on. If you pull a Section 793, then you get the breakdown of who's holding in Halifax. So I can find out if anyone's been selling shares, but I'm not bothered about that, in the sense that you put some money into my company. If you put it in financings or you bought on market, I cannot complain when you choose to sell your shares for whatever reason, either because you don't feel confident in the business anymore, or because you need some cash to pay bills, or you need cash to buy a holiday or a car or whatever you need that money for. I am proud that our stock is liquid and people can move in and out of the share. I also know where the selling has come from. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there that can realize certainly one of the sellers that have been in place in recent months. And of course, it's very difficult for me to be able to communicate my level of confidence in when that selling will likely subside. And who knows if other selling might kick in and replace it. I doubt it, but it's always a possible. But there has been some pressure on our market. There has been some selling going through the market. I am confident in our share capital and our share register at the moment. And I'm very confident for the future. And obviously, when selling abates, the market's very clever. It knows when people are selling out. It knows when there might be bad sellers out there. It knows when people need money. And they will not offer you big price when if you've got stock to sell and they see a regular feed of stock. They will offer you the worst. But they also know when it stops. And they realize when it stops and prices adjust quickly. And over the years, I've seen so many people posting on discussion sites and Twitter and all the rest saying, blimey, when I stopped selling, the share price went up 50% or 100%. And that's so commonly is the case. And I'm sure it's not always connected, but then I do think that the market seems to, sense when people are stopping selling and then the price adjusts. The other thing is our business is active and proactive and ongoing, and we are a steam train. We will keep going. There might be a temptation to stop market news announcements, and we have slowed them a little bit because we're doing quarterly reports where our some of our news is housed now. We don't always put everything out immediately, but with this level of work, with our working capital and with our approach, we will find things. And when we find things, the market will react. Now, if the market is desperately bad, for a period, then okay, you get a muted reaction. But this is all stacking up in people's minds. I see from our web data, from our social media data, the significant increase in following that the business is getting. And that's partly what keeps us going. The comments and feedback we get keep us going. The positive feedback is great. The negative feedback is useful. And we're getting any kind of feedback is great because it shows people are watching, and they are watching. And whether we spark a big discovery or a big event very quickly and drive our price up on a big surprise market reaction, or whether we do it fundamentally through discipline, determined drive, we will, in our view at least, or our opinion, develop a business that returns considerable value for our shareholders. That's all we focus on, which is why at 9 o'clock at night, we're here doing this, and we recognize, my final comment, we recognize the faith and trust you put in us when you place money in our business. This is not a game. This is people's capital. If you've got that capital, you've probably earned it. You've probably built it up. And when you place it with this business, Power Metal Resources, however you put that money in, it is respected, and we will do our best to deliver for you as a shareholder.
Okay, well, on that note, I think that does wrap us up, Paul. Kenny has allowed everyone to open their mics if they want to. So I'll just give maybe another 30 seconds or so just to see if anyone has any final questions they want to type or speak up, and ask any final points. Otherwise, I think we've covered it all, Paul. So thank you very much, Paul Johnson, the CEO of Power Metal Resources, Oliver Friesen, the CEO of Golden Metal Resources, and Tristan Potas, the CEO of First Development Resources. Thank you all very much for your time, and thank you everyone for attending this evening. If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.